Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive with us.
Always excited to be back.
And today we're looking at something I know a lot of you have requested.
Yeah, tons of requests for this one.
Learning English faster and more efficiently.
It's such a popular topic.
For good reason.
Absolutely essential skill for so many people.
Right, and we have a ton of your tips and tricks.
And advice and methods.
So what we're going to do is go through them together.
And see what we find.
Exactly, we're going to sift through all of it and pull out the gems.
Find those golden nuggets.
The ones that make a real difference.
That's the goal.
All right, so this first one that we have here,
Oh yeah, this one looks interesting.
it talks about the power of daily habits.
Ooh, habits are so important.
So important, and this source emphasizes that even just a few minutes every day
Even just a little bit.
of speaking English
Any amount of exposure helps.
can have a huge impact.
Over time, it really adds up.
It's funny how it's sometimes the simplest advice.
That's often the most powerful.
Yeah, and I think we hear this a lot, right?
Yeah. We do consistency is key,
Consistency is key in pretty much every area of life.
especially with learning a language.
But I'm curious, what's the science behind this?
Why does it work?
Why is it so effective?
Well, each time you speak English, even briefly, you're strengthening neural pathways in your brain.
So it's like building muscle memory, but for language.
Precisely.
You got it. That's a great
It
analogy.
makes me think of practicing a musical instrument.
Or a sport.
Yeah, you don't just become a pro overnight.
No, it takes those consistent daily practices.
To build that mastery over time.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Right?
But I think sometimes just knowing you should do something,
It's not enough.
not enough at all.
It's hard to put it into practice.
Yeah, we struggle with motivation.
And fitting it into our busy lives.
Absolutely.
So many demands on our time.
So how do we find creative ways to fit English practice in?
That's where I think this source really shines.
Oh, does it have some good tips?
It does. It's got some seriously clever suggestions for sneaking in practice.
Without overhauling your whole schedule.
I like that. I need that.
We all do.
So give me an example.
What kind of things are we talking about?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Well, one that stood out to me was changing your phone's language settings.
Oh, to English.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Such a simple tweak.
I wouldn't have thought of that.
But you'd be surprised how much exposure you get just by navigating your phone in English every day.
That's brilliant.
Right.
It's almost like passive learning,
Exactly.
but in a super practical way.
And it's not just about tech either.
Oh, there's more
Yeah, this source also talks about labeling household items.
with their English names.
Yep.
So creative.
It's all about creating an immersive environment.
I like that.
And it's surprisingly effective.
I can imagine every time you reach for something.
You're getting a little vocabulary boost.
Exactly like the coffee maker.
Or your coat.
It's all there right in front of you.
Everyday objects become learning tools.
Okay, I'm loving these practical tips.
I am too.
But let's maybe shift gears a little bit.
Okay, what else do we have?
This source also mentions some more classic learning techniques.
Like what?
Things like flashcards
Oh yeah, those are a classic.
and watching English shows with subtitles.
Everyone's familiar with those.
Those are pretty common.
They're popular for a reason.
But I'm curious, what's the science behind why they work so well?
Yeah, why are they so effective?
Well, flashcards tap into the power of active recall.
Instead of just passively reading.
You're making your brain work to retrieve the information.
And that struggle to recall actually strengthens learning.
It's like your brain is doing a mini workout.
Haha.
Every time you try to remember a word.
You're building those mental muscles.
I love that.
And with subtitles,
What about them?
you're engaging multiple senses
Oh, right. You're hearing it and seeing it.
at the same time.
It's connecting those sounds with the written form.
And that multi-sensory approach helps solidify the connection.
You know, I actually use this technique myself.
Oh, really?
When I was learning Spanish,
You did?
I would put on my favorite shows.
With Spanish subtitles.
Yeah, and I started picking up on words and phrases.
Even though you weren't actively studying.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's how powerful it can be.
It's like learning by osmosis.
Like magic.
Okay, so we've got daily habits,
Check.
immersive techniques, and some classic study strategies.
That's a good foundation.
But let's be honest,
What's the catch?
motivation can be a real challenge,
Oh, absolutely.
even with all the best tools and techniques.
We all hit those points where we feel stuck or discouraged.
It's so true.
And that's why this source emphasizes setting small goals
Oh, that's a good tip.
and celebrating those small wins,
Because it can feel overwhelming.
especially with something like learning a language.
It can feel like a huge mountain to climb.
Right.
So break it down.
Exactly.
Instead of focusing on becoming fluent,
Which is such a big goal.
focus on smaller steps.
Like mastering one grammar point.
Or learning 10 new words each day.
Much more manageable.
It's like breaking down a marathon into miles
You got it.
instead of trying to run the whole thing at once.
You focus on 1 mile at a time.
Exactly. And those small victories add up.
But they do.
And they release those feel-good chemicals in your brain.
Making you more likely to stick with it.
So it's not just about learning English
It's about understanding how our brains work
and how to stay motivated.
in any area of life.
So true.
And this source takes it even further
Oh, how so?
by talking about the power of a growth mindset.
Okay, what's that?
It means believing that your abilities aren't fixed.
So I'm not just bad at languages.
No.
There's hope for me.
Exactly. You can learn and grow,
Even me.
especially you.
So instead of saying I'm not good at languages,
You say, I'm learning and growing every day.
I love that.
It's a much more empowering mindset.
It is.
And a growth mindset also embraces mistakes.
Mistakes are part of the process.
Exactly. They're opportunities for learning.
Oh, I like that.
Imagine if Thomas Edison had given up after his first failed attempt at the light bulb.
He would have missed out.
Big time.
He viewed each setback as valuable feedback.
Leading him to ultimate success.
That's seriously inspiring.
It is a classic example,
Okay, but for many people, I think,
even with the best mindset.
and the best strategies,
The biggest hurdle is finding the time.
we are all so busy.
So busy.
How do we fit English practice in?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is.
Well, the source offers some practical time management strategies.
Oh, good. I need those.
Things like using reminders,
Reminders are good.
breaking your practice into short bursts,
Oh, that's smart.
and finding creative ways to integrate English into your existing routines.
Like what?
What kind of things are they suggesting?
I'm intrigued.
Well, one example is using those short bursts.
Okay.
Instead of thinking, I need to block out an hour,
Great. That's daunting.
you can squeeze in 5 minutes of flashcards
While waiting for your coffee.
or listen to a podcast on your commute.
You're using time you already have.
Exactly. Those little pockets of time add up,
And these time management strategies can be applied to any skill.
not just English.
That's a good point.
It's about being efficient with your time.
Okay, I'm already feeling more motivated and equipped.
I am too.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have in this first part.
We talked about the importance of daily habits,
Yes.
immersive techniques,
Those are fun.
classic study strategies,
Always helpful.
the power of mindset,
So crucial.
and even practical time management tips.
We've covered it all.
But we're just getting started.
That's right. There's more to come.
In the next part,
We'll dive even deeper,
into the source material
uncovering specific techniques and resources
that you can start using right away.
to supercharge your English learning journey.
I can't wait.
Me neither. This is getting good. Welcome back. Ready for more?
Oh, yeah. Let's dive into some more of these practical tips.
I love getting into the nitty-gritty.
Me too. It's one thing to talk about the big picture.
Right, but it's the little things that make the difference.
Exactly. And this source is full of actionable tips.
Like what kind of things?
Some of them are so simple but clever.
Simple is good.
Like the suggestion of labeling things around your house with their English names.
Well, that's a good one.
It's like building vocabulary without even trying.
You're just going about your day.
But you're surrounded by English words.
It's like turning your home into an English language playground.
I love that analogy.
It makes it fun.
It does, and it's effective because you're creating a constant visual reminder.
Over time, those words just become part of your natural vocabulary.
It reminds me of when I was a kid learning the alphabet.
Oh, yeah.
Parents put up these colorful alphabet posters all over the house.
That's smart.
It really helped me learn the letters quickly.
Visual cues are so powerful.
They are, and this source had a bunch of other ideas for using everyday objects and activities.
Oh, like what?
To your advantage.
I'm all ears.
Well, one that stood out to me was using sticky notes to label things.
Sticky notes are a lifesaver.
I know, right? It's such a low-tech solution.
But so effective.
Exactly, and it's not just about labeling objects.
What else can you do?
You can use sticky notes to write down new English phrases you want to learn
Oh, that's clever.
and stick them in places where you'll see them frequently.
Like where?
On the fridge, on your bathroom mirror, on your laptop.
Little reminders throughout your day.
Exactly.
I like it.
And speaking of reminders,
Oh, yeah.
this source had some really good advice on using technology to your advantage.
Technology can be a great tool.
It can, and it's not just about fancy language learning apps.
What else?
One simple tip that stood out was switching your phone's language settings to English.
Oh, I've heard of that.
I actually did that a few months ago.
And how's it working?
You're right, it makes a bigger difference than you'd think.
It's amazing how much we rely on our phones.
I know, right?
So you're constantly encountering those English words and phrases.
Just by doing everyday tasks like texting or checking email.
It's like immersion through technology.
Exactly, and the more you interact with the language in a natural setting,
The faster it becomes ingrained in your brain.
it just makes sense.
It does.
And speaking of technology,
what about it?
this source also mentioned using apps specifically designed for language learning.
There are so many out there.
Have you tried any of those?
I have. There are some really good ones.
What I love about a lot of them is that they incorporate gamification.
Oh, yeah, that makes it fun.
It does. It makes learning feel less like a chore.
And more like a game.
Exactly.
Gamification is so powerful for motivation.
It is. It taps into our natural desire for rewards and achievements.
And many language learning apps also use spaced repetition algorithms.
Oh, right. We talked about those earlier.
Incredibly effective for moving information from short-term to long-term memory.
It's like having a personalized tutor in your pocket.
Exactly.
But let's not forget about the importance of good old-fashioned practice.
Oh, right. We can't just rely on apps.
This source had a ton of suggestions for active practice, too.
Like what?
What kind of things are we talking about?
I'm curious.
Well, one classic technique is writing in a journal in English.
Journaling can be so therapeutic.
It can, and it's a great way to practice expressing your thoughts and ideas in writing.
And it can help you identify areas where you need to improve your grammar or vocabulary.
That's a good point.
It's like a self-assessment tool.
And if you're more of an auditory learner,
Well then.
this source recommended listening to English podcasts or audiobooks.
Oh yeah, those are great options.
And don't underestimate the power of music.
Oh, music is so powerful.
Singing along to English songs.
That's fun.
It is, and it's a great way to work on your pronunciation and improve your listening skills.
Sneaking in practice while enjoying your favorite tunes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like that. And speaking of fun,
More fun tips.
this source also emphasized the importance of finding a study buddy.
Or even a mentor.
Someone to practice with can make a huge difference,
It adds a social element to the learning process.
which can be incredibly motivating.
It's like having a built-in accountability partner.
And if you're lucky enough to find a mentor who's fluent in English,
They can offer personalized feedback and guidance.
which can really accelerate your progress
It's like having a personal coach.
for your English learning journey.
Exactly.
Okay, so far we've got labeling things around the house, switching our phones to English,
Check.
using language learning apps, writing in a journal,
Check.
listening to podcasts,
Check.
singing along to music,
Check.
and finding a study buddy.
That's a lot of great advice.
It is, but there's one more piece of advice that I think is crucial for long-term success,
Okay, what's that?
and that's celebrating those small wins along the way.
Oh, yes, celebrating is so important.
It is. It's so easy to get caught up in the big picture.
And forget to acknowledge how far we've come.
Exactly. Learning a new language is a marathon, not a sprint.
It takes time and effort and dedication.
And it's so important to reward yourself for your hard work.
Even if it's just mastering a new grammar rule or having a successful conversation.
Those little victories add up,
They do.
and they help keep you motivated.
Absolutely. Celebrating your progress releases those feel-good chemicals in your brain.
Making you more likely to stick with it.
And it reinforces the idea that learning English is a positive and rewarding experience.
It should be enjoyable.
It definitely should be.
This source really emphasized the importance of being intentional about your learning journey.
Being proactive.
It's not just about passively absorbing information.
It's about actively engaging with the language
Finding creative ways to practice.
and celebrating your successes along the way
It's about taking ownership of your learning.
and making it a fun and fulfilling experience.
Okay, we've covered a ton of ground here in part 2 of our deep dive.
We have, but there's still more to explore.
All right, welcome back for the final part of our deep dive into mastering English.
The grand finale.
It is, going through all this advice.
So much good stuff.
I'm struck by how much emphasis there is on being proactive.
Yeah, it's not just about passively absorbing information,
Right, it's about actively engaging with the language.
making it your own.
And this source gave so many examples of what that looks like.
Like what?
Well, remember the tip about thinking in English?
Oh yeah, even just narrating your daily activities in your head.
Sounds simple, but it's a powerful way to incorporate the language.
Into your everyday thought processes.
Exactly. It's like giving your brain a constant English workout.
Even when you're not formally studying.
Exactly. And the more you practice thinking in English,
The more natural it will become.
and speaking of being proactive,
What else?
there was another piece of advice that really resonated with me.
I'm curious.
Don't be afraid to ask questions.
That seems obvious.
It does, but I think sometimes we're hesitant to admit we don't understand something.
It's true, we don't want to look foolish.
But asking questions is crucial for solidifying your understanding. And don't limit yourself to asking teachers or experts.
Right, you can ask fellow learners.
Or even consult online resources.
There's a whole world of information out there.
It's like having a global network of English teachers at your fingertips.
Well, I love that analogy.
And another tip that stood out to me,
Okay, what's that?
use context clues.
To figure out the meaning of unfamiliar words.
Exactly. Be a detective.
Instead of reaching for a dictionary?
Right. Try to decipher the meaning based on the surrounding words.
I like that it turns reading into a more active process.
Absolutely. It's like solving a puzzle.
And it not only helps you expand your vocabulary, but it strengthens your reading comprehension skills too.
You're training your brain to think critically and make connections.
That's what it's all about.
And speaking of making learning fun,
Fun is key.
remember all those creative suggestions for immersing yourself in the language?
Like what?
Like labeling things around your house with sticky notes,
Oh yeah?
or changing your phone's language settings to English,
Those are great examples.
of how to incorporate the language into your everyday life.
Even in small ways.
And over time, those small changes can make a big difference,
it's all about creating an environment.
where you're constantly exposed to English.
Exactly, like turning your whole world into an English language classroom.
I love that.
And it doesn't have to be a drastic overhaul.
Right, just find those little opportunities.
To incorporate the language into your daily routine.
This source also highlighted the importance of staying motivated
Motivation is so important.
and celebrating those small wins along the way.
We've talked about that.
We have, because learning a new language can be challenging.
It can be really tough.
So it's essential to acknowledge your progress and give yourself credit.
Absolutely.
It's like giving yourself a pat on the back.
For every step you take on your English learning journey.
Exactly. And those little celebrations add up.
They do.
They remind you that you're making progress.
Even when it feels slow or challenging.
So to sum it all up,
The big takeaway.
learning English is an adventure. It requires both dedication and a sense of playfulness.
You got it.
It's about finding techniques that work for you
And embracing those aha moments.
and celebrating your progress every step of the way.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And with that inspiring thought, we'll wrap up this deep dive.
It's been a journey.
It has. We hope you've gleaned some valuable insights
I think we all have.
and feel empowered to continue your English learning adventure.
Keep going.
Remember, every step you take, no matter how small, brings you closer to your goal.
One step at a time.
Keep exploring, keep practicing,
And most importantly,
keep having fun.
absolutely, learning should be enjoyable.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.